And I made a vow to myself that I would never do that again. And eventually I had to kind of brainwash myself into being like, okay, I love this person, and then set myself on a journey of a life with them. It was, you're not getting me ahead. You're not getting me this success. You're not getting me my dreams. You're not getting me my freedom. I'm gonna share a pretty private, intimate story with you of one of those big life mistakes that we're gonna talk about and how I did it. And I did it for a long time, and it cost me severely, severely, severely. That's the biggest question that you have and you must ask yourself. Biggest life mistakes that are costing you time. And let's just be really honest. When you're making these big life mistakes, they're costing you peace of mind. They're costing you fulfillment. They're costing you joy. They're costing you happiness, success, freedom. So we're gonna talk about what are these biggest life mistakes that are costing you time. And the reality is if you don't change these, you will continue to waste your life. You will continue to live a life that you look in your hands and they're empty. You're not satisfied with what you've built. And it's because you keep repeating these same mistakes and they're costing you dearly. Now, I believe we all learn from personal examples, so I'm gonna share a pretty private, intimate story with you of one of those big life mistakes that we're gonna talk about and how I did it. And I did it for a long time, and it cost me severely, severely, severely. And because I found the courage to correct this mistake, it makes me very vigilant about how I live my life and the choices that I make, because I don't want to go back and repeat this big mistake. And one of them is just people pleasing, trying to make people happy. Look, you know it, I know it, but the reality is our actions, what we know, sometimes our actions don't line up with what we know. We'll never be able to make people truly happy. Even the people who love us and want the best, it's never, ever, 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 ever our job to make them happy. But most of the time, as much as we understand that, we will work so hard for that approval. We'll work so hard for that validation. We'll work so hard to hear someone say, I'm proud of you, I love you, I accept you. And we do this in every area, with our family, with our work colleagues, with our boss, with our friends, with our lovers, you name it. We all, to some degree, do this bad mistake, this big mistake of trying to make other people happy. But the reality is it ends up costing you peace of mind, joy, actually building a life that you actually want, being successful when you do the thing that you're meant to do as opposed to the thing that you think you're supposed to do. Perfect example, how many times have you listened to people who are children of immigrants, who their parents gave up everything to come to a country like America, and they killed themselves so that their children could have a different life. But what does that do? It puts tons of pressure on the child to what? Perform, to make the parents happy, to please them. And so you hear so many stories of people who come from these situations and they become a banker, they become a doctor, they become an attorney, all of these high caliber jobs that Americans say, if you've done this, you've made it. That society says, if you have one of these jobs, you've made it. But then these children do these jobs, and 5 years down the line, they realize they're empty, they're miserable, they don't have a loving relationship, they don't feel free on the inside, they're a slave to their job, they're angry, they're having to medicate, they're having to drink, they're having to spend money shopping and buying cars because on the inside there's a void. And what happens is when we make the biggest mistake of trying to make people happy, it creates a void inside of us. When really what that child needs to do is go, what is it that's inside of me? What is it that keeps me awake at night? What problem am I wanting to solve? What is the thing that I feel very passionate that I can do with my life? What is that path? And how do I pursue that? But at the end of the day, when we're trying to make people happy, we're always looking for that acceptance. And we don't just ask ourselves like, damn, what is the thing that I'm hoping to get? That's the biggest question that you have and you must ask yourself, and you must get the answer. Otherwise, you'll continue to make this biggest life mistake that's costing you time. And the question is this: what am I hoping to get by making them happy? What am I hoping for as an outcome? And that's a really vulnerable answer, because it could be something super deep, like, I just want them to be proud of me. I want them to approve of me. I want them to finally love me. But the beauty of this is you don't have to give all that power to someone else, that you can actually take that power back and you can learn how to start giving that to yourself. And if the people in your life, if they really love you, then they will come around. They will come full circle. I had to go on this journey with my parents, and I'm going to share a story with you. It's super private, super intimate. But I made this biggest life mistake that cost me tremendous time. And I made a vow to myself that I would never do that again. And it makes me super vigilant with my life of constantly checking on myself and saying, Arica, are you making that same mistake? Are you trying to make people happy? Because you know the price that you will pay. Nobody else is going to pay the price but you. You end up paying the price when you try to make other people happy. And so I constantly have to check in with myself and go, am I repeating that same mistake? Because I do not want to suffer the consequence of it costing me my time. And that takes tremendous courage. So it's getting really honest. What is it that you hope to get out of them? And how do you start giving that to yourself? And as I said, you know, sometimes, like even with my own family, I went for a period where I had to take a break from them, because it was like, if you can't accept me and love me for me, if that is contingent upon me making you happy, then we don't have a relationship. Then this isn't love. Because love is you love me and you approve of me unconditionally. That's how this works. And so for a while, I stepped back from my family, and eventually they came full circle. And I'll share you a precious story about what my dad said that was his epiphany and this pursuit. But it gave them the space to face themselves, but also to take responsibility and have some boundaries for myself and go, it's not my job to make everyone happy. I have to make myself happy, and that approval that I'm seeking from them, I got to figure out how to give that to me. I have to find a community, I have to find relationships that will give that to me. If I'm not getting it from here, I've got to find out how to get it from there. Because I think it is a human need to be approved of, to be loved, to be accepted. And sometimes we're not going to get it from our family. Maybe the friends that we have right now are not the friends we need anymore, and we need to create a different circle, a different tribe that's going to give us that support. So that is, I would say, one of the biggest life mistakes that is costing you time. The second one is distractions. Distractions are what we do to numb ourselves, and we're all guilty of it, whether it's social media, whether it's eating, drinking, shopping, dating, living promiscuously, vegging out, and just watching TV, immersed with other people's lives, celebrities' lives, because you can't confront your own. Most of the time we go to distractions because we're trying to avoid pain, or because we feel incapable and powerless about our situation. The reality is, until we face that, until we just call bullshit on distraction and say, you're not getting me ahead, you're not getting me this success, you're not getting me my dreams, you're not getting me my freedom, distraction, F off, because you're not getting me anywhere. When we come to terms with that, then we can take control over our lives. Then we can change the direction of our lives. But it causes us to get very honest with our habits of running to coping mechanisms, running to distractions, which we're all guilty of. Have to have that check-in. It's like I said, I check in with myself to go, am I people pleasing? I also have to do the same check-in with distractions. Am I getting on Instagram too long because I'm hoping that someone's going to give me a validation mark, when really I'm not spending enough time loving on myself? You know, it's being in a state of constantly holding ourselves accountable and going, am I running to this? Distractions is the biggest mistake that's costing you your life and your time. And the reality is, you have to ask yourself, what is it I'm avoiding? What is it that I'm not giving myself? And how do I start changing that today. It's the quickest way. So I'm going to share with you this really personal story. I got married super young at 18, and I came from, my parents at the time were super religious and pretty controlling. They're very different now, thank God. But I got into this marriage thinking that I was going to make my parents happy and I was going to make God happy. But when I was with this person, I was like, this person doesn't do it for me. And eventually I had to like kind of brainwash myself into being like, okay, I love this person, and then set myself on a journey of a life with them. It was incredibly difficult. I will not even begin to describe how difficult it was to betray myself to make other people happy. And it wasn't until I went into a really dark space, I was feeling suicidal. I thought about drowning myself in a bathtub, as dark as that is. And I remember just knowing that if I divorced this person, that I was going to be disappointing everybody, my church, my community, my friends, my family, everyone was going to be disappointed. But I was like, this is complete bullshit. I'm willing to jeopardize my life to make all of these assholes happy. And that's how I felt about them at the time. Now, most of the people who were in my circle then, I now love them. But at that point, I was so angry with everyone because I didn't feel like I put myself in a position where making them happy and getting their approval was the validation of my life. And I'll never forget, I came up out of the water and I said, this is bullshit. I will not live my life this way. I made the most difficult decision to walk out of that 7-year marriage. Everyone was disappointed in me. My community was, my family was, everyone was wildly disappointed. But something changed inside of me where I was like, I cannot continue to live my life like this. I have to choose to live life from my heart and not out of this fear of being rejected by the people who love me, the fear of not having them approve of me. I have to live my life on my own terms. I went through that divorce, and it was one of the most difficult, hardest things I've ever done in my life because it was all I knew. I was walking away from everything that I knew. And sometimes we have to put some really strong boundaries, even with the people who are supposed to love us. And I'll never forget, I didn't speak to my family for 6 months, and I was so angry, and it was so difficult. And I'll never forget, it was my birthday, and they called me for my birthday. I didn't want to answer, but I did. I felt intuitively it was right, and I answered it. And I'll never forget the story that my dad said. He said that he was crying out to God, God, I'm a failure. All of my children are like, each of us kids were going through some rough patches. And he said, God, my children, like, change my children. They're all failing. Change my children. And he said that he heard God say, I'm not interested in changing your children. I'm interested in changing you. And I'll never forget my father saying to me, Arica, I don't care, because I had moved to a different state. Like, they knew nothing about my life. I just completely shut them out. He said, I don't care if you're selling drugs. I don't care if you're out stripping. I don't care if you're out killing people. At the end of the day, you are my daughter, and I love you no matter what. And I remember breaking and crying and saying, Dad, that's all I've ever wanted. And what that did was that boundary set my dad up to face himself and to deal with his own demons, and the same with the rest of my family. And the reality is, the longer that you keep trying to please people, you will never ever get there. You'll never make people happy. The only person that you can make happy is you. And you can only do that by stop distracting yourself and getting real and getting honest about what's going on in your heart, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, what are the things that you really want. And the way that you're going about getting those things, is that costing you time? Is it costing you freedom? Is it costing you your joy? Is it costing you your peace of mind? At the end of the day, like, we're not responsible to make people happy. We're responsible to make ourselves happy. So thankfully, at that time, I had the wherewithal to find community with other people because I needed that support. I knew I couldn't go through that chapter alone in my life. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm really grateful that now my parents and all of us have come full circle. It's like they are proud of me now, but they've kind of had to go through their own journey. But they never would have had to face themselves if I kept trying to make them happy. The people in your life will never face themselves. They'll never get free as long as you keep enabling them. It's not your job. Quit doing it because it's costing you. And so you have to ask yourself, what are the things that I'm doing in my life that are costing me? That are costing me in a way that is leading me into disappointment, into hopelessness. And I hope that these hard questions, I hope that you will really take the time to look in the mirror and to ask yourself these questions, because without them, your life will never change. You'll never get your life back. You'll never get your time back. You'll never get your heart back. You'll never get your freedom back until you start asking yourself these very hard questions. Listen, subscribe, like this video, and in the comment section, like, tell me what part of this really impacted you. What part of this did you see yourself in? You're like, damn, you said this, and I have to look in the mirror now. I have to be accountable for the way I'm living my life. I've got to change this. And let me tell you, the other side of having freedom and being loved for you, not because you're loved based off of what people want out of you, you're actually enjoying the life that you've built because you quit distracting yourself and you're building your life intentionally. The sweetness, it's like eating into a juicy steak. It's delicious. Or having a good glass of red wine. There's something rich about it when you start choosing you. And if you need support, you can apply for coaching with me. You can get my free course called Become the Damn Hero of Your Life. This will give you some practical steps. It's a 5-day training and free activation to get you started, to start making the steps, to start choosing you and moving forward in your life.